Bore da pawb. Good morning, everyone. Please remain standing for prayers by the chaplain before we start the meeting. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, members, if I just go through our regular notices before we start. I would like to remind you all that this council meeting is being broadcast live over the internet, so we are all on camera. Please be aware you may be visible on screen when people around you are speaking, and please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. This meeting is available to view online now and in the future, whenever and wherever people wish to view it. Therefore, there is no need for any other filming of the meeting to take place. We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings. I have had no requests for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. I'd like to welcome everyone attending the meeting today and anybody watching the meeting via the webcast. But can I please ask that all mobile phones and other noisy devices be switched to silent? If there is an emergency alarm, follow the green signs and go to the ground floor of the Civic Car Park. If we have any motions or amendments during the meeting, I will need them to be clear, please, before we go to the vote. Then if we move on to agenda item 1, attendance. The attendance register will be going around the room in a moment. Please can all members sign it and pass it on. Sign myself in first. There we go. Thank you. I'll just update where we are on the webcast. Okay, agenda item 2, apologies for absence. Dominic Redmond, have we had any apologies, please?
I've had apologies from councillors Cathy Evans, Elizabeth Haynes, Nicholas Jones, Peter Jones, Sue Molson and Louise Shepherd.
Thank you. Members, are there any other apologies you know of?
Councillor Colette Thomas.
We go straight on to agenda item 3 then. Declarations of interest. Delith Harris, do you have any advice for members, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. With regard to item number 9, the Torfaen Local Development Plan, I have advised members that if you are a member of any of the bodies listed in Appendix 1, then you have a personal interest to declare as a consultee. I understand that the following members have interests. Councillors Stuart Evans, Alan Jones and Janet Jones are members of Blaenavon Town Council. Councillors Robert Kemp and Stuart Ashley are members of Cwmbran Community Council. Councillor Ashley is also a member of Torfaen Friends of the Earth. Councillors Norma Parish, Ray Mills and Richard Overton are members of Pontypool Community Council, and Councillor Parish is trustee of Age Connects Torfaen. Councillors Richard Clark, Veronica Crick and Joanne Gordon are members of Croesakilog and Llanarafon Community Council. And Councillor Ron Burnett is a member of Pentlys Community Council. I'm not aware of any other interests, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can I just say, Councillor Gaynor James, I'm a member of Pontypool Community Council.
Members, are there any other? Yeah. Okay. As we go around it, can you make sure any interests are also written on the normal form in the attendance register? And if any more occur to you as we continue. Go on to agenda item 4. Starting on page 5 of the agenda, the minutes of the previous meeting. Could I ask that somebody move that the minutes are correct? Yeah, thank you. Are we all agreed? Thank you, members. Agenda item 5 on page 37 of the agenda, update on actions. Members, the updates on what has been done to implement our previous decisions begins also on page 37. Are there any comments or questions? Councillor Kemp.
If I could turn to page 37 and the first action point on 37, where it says Councillor Daniels to write to the Minister to seek reassurance on project funding for supporting people. If I could ask Councillor Daniels, should he receive a response from the Minister, could he circulate it to members, please? Thank you.
Yes, of course. I'm more than happy to do. Thanks, Councillor Kemp.
Okay, members, any other questions or comments? In that case, I'll be happy to note those updates. No show of hands. We're happy? Thank you. Thank you, members. They're noted. On to agenda item 6, notice of receipt of petitions even. We've had no petitions today, so we'll move straight on to item 7. Public question time. Again, there are no public questions. So we'll move on to item 8, which is announcements. Leader, do you have any announcements, please?
I do, thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank members for attending the raising of the ensign today. We're the first of the 22 local authorities to raise that as part of the RAF centenary events. I'll also be representing the council in Swansea on Saturday at the national event. So that's both personally as someone whose family members have served in the RAF and as a council, I think we can be proud of the role we're playing in that. Secondly, I'd like to congratulate all the Torvine athletes particularly, who are part of a record performance by Team Wales at the Commonwealth Games over in Australia, which closed at the weekend. So congratulate them on their fantastic efforts. I'd also like to say thank you to the staff, people from Keep Wales Tidy and volunteers for all their magnificent efforts as part of the Spring Clean in Torvine this year. Personally, I'd like to thank the irrepressible Ron Ford, who's been in many of our communities helping with litter picks, and all the other people who stepped up to the plate to help. I know there have been events in Fairwater that have been fantastic, and also in many of the other wards across the borough. I'd like to thank pupils, for example, from Crossy Primary and Cranbridge School, who joined the little ones from the Building Blocks nursery to do a litter pick recently. So that's children as young as 2 years old, working, helping their parents to fill bags and to help tidy up our area. That really is part of us taking a pride in the physical fabric of our area, and it's most appreciated. So thank you for all the people who played a part in that. I'd also like to thank the play service staff for their work tidying up and painting many of the subways, especially in Cwmbran. That's helped improve and brighten up a key sort of part of safe routes to school. So that's very much welcomed. I'd also like to thank the play and congratulate the play service staff for their nomination for the National Play Work Awards as part of the recognition for the fantastic job they do. So thank you for that. I'd like to thank Giles Davis, who's made a great start as a motor neuron disease champion for this council. And we're going to hold an event, a meeting, and we're willing to host that meeting for that organisation to help them along. And that's part of our commitment as we made in council earlier in the year for the efforts to tackle and support those suffering from motor neuron disease. I will be attending the funeral of former Caerphilly leader Harry Andrews this afternoon, and will send my best wishes from councillors in Torvine who have worked with Harry and have known of his work in Caerphilly. So I'll be there this afternoon. I'd also like to finally mention the Man Engine event in Blenavon, which I hear was a fantastic success with many people lining the streets to witness that fantastic event.
Thank you, Leader. Chief Executive, do you have any announcements?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
We'll go on to agenda item 9 on page 39 of the agenda. the Torvine Local Development Plan Review Report and Delivery Agreement. Can I ask Adrian Wilcock, Principal Planner, to present the report for us, please?
I'll just introduce it if that's okay. Our current LDP ceases to be a development plan on the 31st of March 2021, which for good reason is known as the drop dead date. After that time, a replacement development plan needs to be adopted, or there's a risk that the County Borough will be open to planning applications being decided without any local policy or strategic context set by this Council. Therefore, there is an urgency to make sure there's a replacement plan as soon as possible. Today's report follows on from our meeting in January, where we considered 2 letters from the Cabinet Secretary. One, a request to prepare a Cardiff Capital Region Strategic Development Plan, an SDP, and another to consider undertaking a joint LDP review with our neighbouring councils. At that time, Council resolved to liaise with our neighbours and consult stakeholders on the draft review report before bringing the matter back to this meeting for a decision. The note reports that in reply to the Cabinet Secretary, every council unanimously supported the preparation of an SDP and rejected joint LDPs with a variety of reasons given. In reply, the Cabinet Secretary's latest letters now expect councils to prepare and submit a delivery agreement to prepare individual LDPs as well as commence an SDP. Therefore, I fully support the recommendations of the report in section 12 for Council to resolve to be part of the preparation of the Cardiff Capital Region SDP and undertake an individual review of Torvine LDP. The report also makes recommendations on publishing the LDP report, a review report, and taking stakeholders' comments into account and consulting on the draft delivery agreement for preparing the LDP review. Finally, Adrian Wilcox, one of our policy planners, will now explain these matters in more detail along with the policy team. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, I'm sure they'll be able to answer them. Thank you.
Remember to press that. All right, thank you. Now, given that Councillor Cross has given you the report overview, I'll try and walk you through the report. It's a complex report, I apologise. The front end of starting the plan is quite dry. Once we get into doing the plan, it'll be a bit more interesting for you. I apologise for that now. So, as Fiona said, as regards the Cardiff Capital Region SDP, if you look at paragraphs 4.7 and 4.9 of your report, that basically explains that the regional leaders have agreed to prepare an SDP, but it worked out that they didn't really have the powers to start it. So, and what's been asked of those leaders is each individual council makes a resolution to basically prepare the SDP so we can get going on that. And that's really what recommendation 1 is, and that's asking you to make that resolution. Now, turning back to the Torvine Local Development Plan, if you look at paragraph 4.9 of the report, what that basically says is that if we're talking about the SDP now, we expect that will start sometime this year, and it's expected to take 4 years to prepare. That would mean, and I think Councillor Cross explained this LDP drop dead date, we'd be out without a development plan in Torvine for 2 years. Now, the review report, that's the actual document in Appendix, I think it's Appendix 2. That goes on to explain, once you've done an SDP, which obviously takes us 2 years into that drop dead date, you also have to prepare a Torvine LDP light. So in effect, we wouldn't achieve full development plan coverage until 2024. That in effect is 3.5 years without a development plan. So that's why, if you turn to paragraph 5.11 of the report, we're saying that if you prepare a Torvine LDP as well as the SDP, we could potentially be adopted in April 2022. That's only 12 months after the drop dead date, so there's a difference between 4 years and 12 months, and that's really the main reason why we're asking you to agree preparing an LDP as well as an SDP. Now, the review report concludes that a full LDP review for Torvine is the most expedient way to ensure development plan coverage for Torvine after the plan expiry date and is wholly within the control of the council. That's another key point as well. It's something we're in control of. Doing an LDP with 10 neighbours hopefully will be easy, but it may be difficult, and my worry is it will take longer than that, 4 years. So what we're saying is your option of reducing that period with no plan, your best option is really to do an LDP. And that leads into recommendation 4 that asks you to agree to resolve to produce a full revision of the LDP, and that would cover the period 1st of April 2018 to the 31st of March 2033. That's a long time away, that's 15 years. So now we've established the form of the review, I'd like to return to the 2 documents that we're asking you to approve today as well. Now, the first of those documents, let's get the appendix number, is Appendix 2, and that's the review report. So that's this document here. Now, I'll try and explain what this is, but paragraphs 5.1 and 5.11 of the report do that for you. In summary, a plan review should be based on the findings of published annual monitoring reports. That's that report we bring to you every October explaining how the plan's doing, what's not working well, what contextual changes have happened since. That's things that have happened, that's like new legislation and things that the original plan didn't take account of, because the whole point of the review report is, in effect, it was adopted in 2013. Things have happened since, and if you're doing a new plan, you need to take them into account. And the first thing we have to do is consult on that, and you've agreed for us to do that in January, and we've done that. I'll come on to that later. And then once it comes back, there's a report consultation, which is Appendix 1, which you're required to consider. And then we're asking you to sort of agree that we can publish that, so that's this Appendix 2. Now, going back to that consultation, we carried out 6 weeks consultation, sort of from January until March, on the draft review report with over 100 stakeholders. We had 21 responses. We've summarised all of those responses as we're required to do in Appendix 1 of your report. So in Appendix 1 is every single thing that people said, and on that there's officer recommendations which are asking you to agree again today. Now, paragraph 5.7 of your report basically explains all the changes, the main changes we're looking to make to the draft report that you agreed in January, and they're listed there. So, for example, there's been an update on Planning Policy Wales, a green paper on local government reorganisation. We hadn't put anything about active travel in, so we've put that in. So it's things like that, really, and those are summarised in paragraph 5.7 for you. Now, as regards what we had from that consultation, paragraphs 5.4 and 5.6 cover that, but in general, the majority of stakeholders who expressed an opinion with the document basically supported what the council was doing, and there were quite a few opinions to the contrary, but they were mainly comments and objections to existing plan allocations. So people had sort of jumped the gun a bit. We're asking what to take into account, and they were already commenting what they'd like the plan to do. But obviously we've reported them, and that's why a lot of the comments, the officer recommendation has been to do nothing. It's nothing against the comments, it was just a bit early. You know, we'll deal with those things as we produce the plan. So, as I said, Council is now legally obliged to approve, obviously if you're happy with it, the final review report by resolution before we have to publish it, and we have to submit it to the Welsh Government, publish it and put the document in places for people to read. So, recommendation 2 asks you to endorse that review report, so that's this for publication, and you may have a few comments on that later. The second document is when you start a plan, you have to produce lost it now, the review report, a draft delivery agreement. And that's basically a document that has a timetable in it for over the next 4 years producing that plan, and something we call a community involvement scheme is how the public and stakeholders can get involved. Now, a key point on this delivery agreement, and it's in paragraph 4.6, it's one of the risks. I can find it now. My report's split now. I'll find it. Yeah, in paragraph 4.6, notes that the Cabinet Secretary, that's in a letter that's attached in the back of the review report, expects the Council to prepare the development plan in 3.5 years, plus there's an allowance of 3 months, what they call slippage. However, with the Council's reduced resources, your office to consider that a preparation period of 3 years, 9 months, with 3 months slippage is more realistic. And we'll know if the Welsh Government are happy with that during the consultation, because they're one of the people we consult. We also generally just meet officers in between, so to know what that would be. So when your draft delivery agreement, this June documents, comes back to you probably in June, once we submit it to the Welsh Government, hopefully we'll get a reply within a week rather than a month. So it's just something that would cut down the time, which we're trying to do all the time. So recommendation 5, asks you to authorise officers to undertake 4 weeks consultation on the delivery agreement, and note that we're bringing it back to Council, as I said earlier, probably June, before it's submitted to the Welsh Ministers. And the last recommendation is self-explanatory, but generally, straight after committee, I find a mistake in the documents and I have to correct them. It's just giving delegated powers for the Chief Officer to make those amendments. Right, so thank you, and I recommend the report to you.
Thank you. Members, any questions or comments?
I just believe that if we fail to with any projects from the last LDPs, the projects that failed, I think they should take priority. I've been sat, for 6 or 7 years talking about a football pitch at the Upper Race, as you all know, and every year it just seems to get 6 or 7 years, and we just still don't seem to be making much progress. And I think that if we fail in one of our challenges, which we did, in providing a football pitch 4 or 5 years ago, I think that should take priority for the next LDP that comes along. Thank you.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Councillor Waite, on that. We're still trying. It's been hard work. We are getting there. We're still trying to get it. There's 2 key points, really. One is the next plan, and I'm not saying against the scheme, but the Welsh Government have said we're not allowed to put schemes in that won't happen, and that'll be the debate we have. But there is still potential, like the Pontypool College is potentially still looking to relocate, so we can get funds from that. We've already got funds from the Pontymoyle Primary School. So, we are looking to work that project up. But it is a key point going forward. There's going to be a much bigger scrutiny now in deliverability of sites. That doesn't mean that even if we can't put it in the local plan because of that, we can't do it as a separate scheme anyway. But, we will debate that as we go through.
Okay, Councillor Giles Davis.
I'm a little bit concerned reading through it, about the section about the British. It says, in the review of policies, section 4.3, and review of sites, section 4.4, changing the text and colour coding the policy S2 on sustainable development. Basically, the British is being downgraded from a green to an amber, and it says at the end, however, emerging proposals which are limited by resources will currently not result in a major land reclamation scheme as envisaged by the policy. I'm a bit concerned because at the start we had a master plan to meet all the funding needs and to green and do the area. But it seems now we've been downgraded to an amber, which it just concerns me a little bit. I just wondered whether there's any reasons why we're not meeting the master plan.
Yeah. No, I think the local development plan has a policy, it's SA5 on the British, and that expected major land reclamation followed by a strategic, it was going to be a housing site, and that was what the policy is. Now, in effect, if you look what we've got, we haven't got that. We're having a reduced reclamation scheme, and there's still a debate if we're going to have any housing at all. So it's no reflection on what we've done. That cleaning and greening is really why it's gone to an amber. It wasn't the big master scheme we've had. That's no way going to mean that we're not going to support going through. It's just a recognition of the resources we need aren't all there.
Well, thanks a lot then for clearing up. I'm bound to be asked about it in the ward. Right, thanks.
I've got Councillor Robert Kent next.
Thank you, Mayor. This is regarding 5.10 of the report, in which basically we'll be obviously putting together hopefully an LDP for 15 years, and it states it will be tying in with the plan period for the Monmouthshire LDP as well. But the fact that we might be going into boundary changes with Blaenau Gwent as well. Are we taking into consideration Blaenau Gwent's LDP as well as Monmouthshire?
All right. Well, what happened when we talked to Monmouthshire, they actually changed to our timetable. They were going to do 2017 to 2032. And this is in recognition, really, of if we're going to do any joint evidence. If you're producing evidence, you need the same time periods. It'd be easy to do for any background studies. So if you park that a bit, Monmouthshire are about a month ahead of us. Their delivery agreement consultation ends today, where ours will end in a month's time. So we know we will be working with them. We've had very detailed discussions with them about joint. I had an email yesterday asking me to meet to do joint working. We intend to do that. That's one of our mitigation for, not having as many resources as we'd like. Blaenau Gwent's a different matter. Now, I can't speak for them, and I don't know what's happened since the Minister's letter, but in reply to the Minister, Blaenau Gwent basically said, with so few resources, we can only afford to produce an SDP. We haven't got the resources to do an LDP, and that's their position. So I can't tell you any more than that, and I don't know how they've reacted to the Minister's letter, because the Minister's letter was sent to every authority and they've all been instructed. And it's not the time to talk about it because I haven't got the information, but they might decide to go against that. I can't say, or they could come in with us. And the only problem with coming in with us, they may be a bit behind. They've done their review report, and that's in the bag, but they won't have done the delivery agreement. And it's, 3 years, 9 months. It's going fast. It took us 6 years last time. I'm not saying that, and that was, that was just because of process, I think. But you can see, and this time round it should be easier. We've done a lot of the work already, and we know what we're doing, and it's the same process. Because Welsh Government have got this habit of changing. It's an LDP, local plan, UDP. They haven't done us that to us this time. But in answer to your question, I can't say about Blaenau Gwent. I only really know from the evidence out there what's happening in Monmouthshire.
I've got Councillor Stuart Ashley next.
We've had a conversation with you in another place about the dichotomy between brownfield and other land in housing terms. I mean, you make it very forceful remark in here about housing underdevelopment and land banking. I think land, how you get that development happening, especially in the affordable sector. I'm sort of looking at it, are we going backwards at the moment on this? Because we have a tremendous need. That was highlighted yesterday. We were talking to the social housing providers about where we get land, and obviously the dichotomy between land, brownfield land and other land, and green wedge provision. It does seem to be a problem with that. We have tremendous demand in one end of the borough for housing, and the pressures that are on that, which is not all population, now people coming in for other places. How are we going to equate that going ahead? Because if we haven't got LDP in place, that's going to cause problems, isn't it?
I think so. Right. A lot of what you said is going in the discussion when we go forward. Yes, when we start discussing the plan. The review report has recognised a few things, and it's recognised we didn't deliver the affordable housing we expected, and that was because of viability. It's also talked about mainly the brownfield land issues about employment land. We're worried as officers that the pressure for affordable housing, they see all these like a 5-acre employment site that's vacant and want to put housing on that, and we're really worried that that is really needed for employment, and any landowner will sit on employment land, not bring it forward, because if they can hope to get housing on it, and really that's a key challenge for us going forward. We need the jobs. The reason people need affordable housing is because they haven't got a job. If we can get them a job first, hopefully they can either afford a house in the open market or even afford their council rent. So it is a difficult challenge going forward, but it is one we've recognised in the review report. I can't really say any more.
I've got Councillor Hugh Bevan next, and then Glyn Karen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is regards to page 131 of the report, the site review for SAA7, Llanfrecford Grange, Cwmbran. Please, could you give us a bit more information? There seems to be some new developments in the report, particularly with regards to the Health Board not progressing the housing on this site? Is the categorisation, we've got a black and white report here, but I believe the categorisation should be set to limited progress and allocation to be reviewed on the colour coding for the category on the left. And the new bit seems to be, this is that bit.
Sorry, I haven't got your page numbering, I'll just check it.
That bit there,
Yeah,
page
S8.
131. Also, a new bit that's appeared now is the Welsh Government not progressing the employment site amid concerns that the access and levelling costs may make employment element uneconomic. Obviously, there's been a considerable amount of earthworks down there, as people would have seen as they passed it with the existing entrance. But can you provide a bit more information on that, please?
Yeah, so yeah, the colour coding's amber, which is correct, so what you've asked for we've done. The Llanfrancford Grange site is basically a site of three parts, isn't it? I call it the hat. The bit above the hospital is the employment. The middle square is the hospital, and the bit below that's the housing. So we know the hospital has got its permission and started. What I call the hat, the employment land, it's been looked at. And I think by the time you've taken levelling and added extra cost to the roundabout, and it now looks like that isn't going to be economic for normal employment. Now, there's still potential. I've always thought, once we knew that that's a good place to expand the hospital uses, so it could be, I'm just coming off the cuff now, so it's, not the proposal, but it could be extensions for ambulance services, all sorts of hospital-related things, catering facilities, all of that. It could be useful, but generally, it now appears that's not deliverable, and that's why it's got an amber. Turning to the housing, the hospital trust have been concentrating so much on the hospital, they've not looked to pursue the housing on the southern part of this three-part site. So that's really where we are. This will go forward in the plan. Obviously, we'll look to review that now. It's still a very important thing for us to look at the employment on that site, the employment benefits of hospital, and that's something we'll take forward. So there's talk of the Medipark now, things like that. So that's all I can say, but we'll pick that up when we start going through the plan.
I think Chief Exec's going to come in first, and then we'll bring Rachel up, if you want to.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we have to distinguish between, the LDP, which is a very technical process, and all that Adrian said is exactly right in terms of planning. In terms of the ambition of the council and our flagship economic development project, that is the Medipark, which it is planned will sit alongside the Grange University Hospital. It's something that we're developing a lot of officer time to. Rachel's leading a big piece of work on it, and she may want to just come and talk about that. We've been talking about partnership with Welsh Government, and we know that the Minister for Health and Social Care is very keen to be involved in that partnership. It's a big project for us in terms of city deal. So in terms of what we want to do there, the ambition is still there. And it's very, very important to this council because it is the opportunity to bring some very high quality, high paid jobs into this region. We know that those sort of jobs in terms of research and tech sit alongside big teaching hospitals, and we've got that huge opportunity of having a very big teaching hospital linked to the university right in the middle of Torvines. So there are the planning aspects which are very properly dealt with in this report, but there's also the ambition of the council. I wouldn't want members to think that those ambitions had gone away. I don't know whether Rachel would like to add to that at all.
Yes, thank you, Chief Exec, for adding a bit more, and thank you for the answer, because that was the point, that was why I asked the question, is that because of the Cardiff City regional deal and with Cwmbran being a strategic hub and the importance attached to the University Grange Hospital, that seemed to be like a key new development in terms of the viability of developing the site because of the concerns over the levelling costs. So that's why I asked the question. Thank you very much.
we won't let levelling costs stop us achieving that level of ambition.
Councillor Karen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've been looking extensively at Appendix 1. I noticed there that you have landowners who say you shouldn't be building houses here, but you should be building them on my land, and then vice versa. You have the conflict of the Campaign for Rural Wales saying that you shouldn't be building photoelectric areas in green land. You've got issues around individuals, which both Giles and Stuart has brought up, about greenfield sites. You've got individuals in here who are dead against any development of the British. You've got developers who are blaming planning for the fact that they can't bring stuff through fast enough. And then you've got the issues that you have here, where we want 106 agreements, which delays the planning issue. You've got requests for more affordable housing from Welsh Government. You've got requests for more housing, and they don't care what sort of housing it is, from national government. How do you, when you get these documents and you get these comments, where there are so many conflicts within every different field, how do you make sense of this and put it forward into the plan?
Well, first of all, I'd say welcome to our world. That's planning. Richard says we always strike a balance, and I love that phrase. And I think you've got to do that. You'll always have people. First thing I was taught at university was there'll always winners and losers from any planning decision, and you never please anyone. So I look at it, you take the honest role, and we'll do this through the process. So it's in the draft delivery agreement. There's too many documents to confuse me with. In there, and the first stage is really we'll engage all stakeholders and get the comments. We've got conflicting ones, but then we'll say, but hang on, we still have to meet the housing growth. We know what you're saying, we respect it. Hang on, we've still got targets for global warming and all of these things. No, but those people will have their debate, and we'll also have, fortunately for you, we'll have workshops for members, and you'll have to go through the same pay. And we'll explain it to you. We will explain what people have said, and you will come to that balance, hopefully with our recommendations, hopefully by yourself as well, of what the best way and the right way forward is. And it's going to be very difficult for you, because you're going to be members. We're going to be putting a housing site in your patch. But then you've got to look at the greater good as well. And I think that's the hat you have to wear as well. Wear the greater good. Don't stick to issues in Cumbrae. Think about what you can do for the north. And it's right. So it's all of that. You will wear that. I call it the balancing hat. I think that helps.
Okay, Councillor Burnett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank Adrian for bringing this report. And as he just commented, you please some of the people some of the time, but not all the time. And I've been on planning for many, many years now. And I was taught by Duncan Smith when he was head, some you win, some you lose. And when you win them, you feel elated. And when you lose them, you feel down and you haven't been treated right. But as I say, this report, which I will recommend, must go forward. We can't afford to wait any longer. And I know how many years it's taken to get there. And the work that all you officers put into this is tremendous. But as some members have said, talking about parochial areas, we've all got that. And we're sometimes not very happy with what's going on. But we must get on with this report before it's too late, and I will be recommending that we pass it.
Members, any more questions or comments on this? No, in that case then, the recommendations are on pages 48 and 49 of the agenda. Can I have a mover and seconder for them, please? Thank you. Show of hands, all those in favour. Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you, members. Those recommendations are agreed. With regard to agenda item 10, page 173 of your agendas, replacement of the role of civic head with the presiding member or chair of council. Can I ask Richard Edmonds, Head of Strategic and Democratic Services, to present the report for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Morning, members. As part of the 18-19 budget setting process and for financial reasons, Council have taken a decision to remove the mayoral function. The report in front of you today effectively sets out the practical next steps that need to be taken to enact that decision. Effectively, to do that, we need to create a presiding member and a deputy presiding member who will act as chair and deputy chair of full council. There are many references throughout the Constitution, naturally, towards the Mayor and Deputy Mayor and the roles that they hold. And if we are going to create a presiding member, then some work needs to be done principally by Delith, working alongside the Members' Constitutional Working Party, to amend all of those references and to swap them out. And there are also a range of operational decisions around certain aspects of the mayoral duties which we're currently working through. So, paragraph 5.2, quite an important one, because when it comes to creating senior salaries or paid positions within organisations, the Independent Remuneration Panel for Wales sets the maximum or the cap, and members need to be assured that in enacting this change we don't exceed that cap, so the information in there should help. It also gives reference to a slight tweak to the way in which the annual general meeting normally runs. Naturally, the first item of business would be to elect the mayor. As a result of this role having to be shared with an existing paid position or a chair of another committee, then we have to appoint the chair of council almost as the last order of business. So just some operational matters set out there. The second paragraph, 5.2, apologies for that, references the constitutional changes which I've mentioned, and then we get into the kind of transfer or decommission of mayoral support functions. There's a list there of the civic events at which support will continue and the events that we will no longer be supporting as a result of the change. And then in 5.3.2 there's some reference to some work that's been determined and some that's ongoing around aspects of the civic car, and so on and so forth, which really we're bringing to members' attention for noting. So in terms of the recommendations on the final page of the report, I'm asking Council to agree to create a presiding member and deputy presiding member, to delegate authority to Delith to make the necessary changes into the Constitution alongside the Members' Constitution Working Party, and to note the ongoing work in regard to the mayoral support resources. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Members, any questions or comments? Hugh?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. No offence to Richard Edmonds, but as I wasn't in the original council meeting that voted to do away with the mayor, I accept that as that decision has been made, then this has become a necessity to put a presiding member in place, but I won't be supporting it because I wouldn't have supported the original decision to remove the mayor. But I do have a question. In terms of the civic events that are listed on 5.3.1, page 174, the list of events no longer supported doesn't seem to be fully inclusive. I am aware of mayors attending other functions, such as the presentations of the awards at the Best Kept Village competition, for one example, and for other events that the mayor had historically attended at local churches, where the one example I'm thinking of was the Flower Festival at Llanfrecffer Church that you attended. So I don't think that list is completely exhaustive and sort of understates the extent of the events which are no longer supported, and the way that it's presented makes it look like we're continuing to support more than we're not.
I'll take that point, Councillor Bevan. I suspect other members will have other events that they want to position on. I think if you can let me know what those events are, we'll be in a position to explain to you whether they're going to be supported moving forward or not. Primarily, the support is in relation to the officer support that is wrapped around the mayor at those events. We are still looking to support as many events as possible, but it will be with exec members and the leader acting in that role rather than the mayor, as has been the case today. So if members want to email me a list of those events, this was the list as presented to me. I'm happy to look at those individually.
Councillor Evans?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's the same theme as Councillor Bevan, really. I mean, there's golden wedding anniversaries, which the Mayor has attended in the past, and there's people that are reaching the age of 100, which is a huge milestone, and that's welcomed by the Mayor as well. So I'd like those to be taken into consideration going forward.
Rose Seaborn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this is a sad day, really, for the Borough of Torfaen, because I don't think anybody realises the respect and high office of the Mayor. But my question is that when you become a Mayor, you're apolitical, so how does the Chairman act in that position?
It's a very good question, actually Councillor Seaborn, and as is often the case when these decisions are taken, you start to work through the detail. There are a number of things that need to be considered. That is one. So that will be between Delith and the Members' Constitution Working Party to determine how the presiding officer acts in terms of apolitical, casting vote, that kind of stuff. Part of the detail.
Mandy Owen?
Sorry, mine's not working. It was just to ask, can we include the citizenship ceremonies? Because a lot of work goes into people becoming citizens, and I know a lot of authorities, they make quite a big thing out of it, so I think if we can include that.
Yeah. Anybody else, members? John?
Yeah, as a former mayor, I just got to echo what he said. It is a very sad day for Torfaen. I do feel physically sick having to vote the way I am, but at the end of the day, austerity measures, we've got to save the money. The money's got to go into the frontline services. It's a very sad day. It's a decision I regret making, but I've got to support it because at the end of the day, the service has got to come first, and we've got to keep the council running. So, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, as members have said, this is a very sad day. And the prestigious title of the Mayor when they're going out meeting people. But I think there are ways around it at different communities. There's Pontypool Community Council, Hentys Community Council, Crossgill, Blanavon, and they do have their chairs of their councils with a chain on. So I'm sure we could look at it, and when it's something in Pontypool chair attends, same as in the south, with Crossgill or Hentys, and they have a chain of office, and I think that does say something when they go to other functions, as Blanavon has as well. So the chairs of those community councils could attend the functions and basically representing Torfaen anyway.
Leader?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think there's been some very interesting points made on event attendance. Obviously, whoever becomes a presiding member may wish to fill some of those roles. Other sort of cabinet members, chairs, and myself are more than happy to help in those as well. I think Councillor Burnett makes a very good point about working with community councils on that basis and helping them to do that job. I mean, the main point I wanted to make was really to echo Giles's comments. Really, no one does this lightly. It is something to have to do, but as Giles said, this is about putting the services we provide first. I think Rose asked an interesting question about the presiding member, and that's something we can discuss going forwards. But in closing, I really wanted to just thank the work that the former mayors, some of whom are here today and some aren't, have done on behalf of the borough, and also to thank the support staff who have worked so diligently for mayors in the past. I think I would hate them to think that any decision we made either last month or today is disrespectful or doesn't recognise the value of the work they do, because we do, and we really value their efforts over the years.
Okay, I suppose I should probably just say a word myself. Obviously, it's very strange debating it when you're actually in the role. It's kind of a bit difficult. But talking about events, obviously I'll be working with Chris and with Hal as well to make sure that those lists are up to date and that, we're taking into account everything that we would normally attend going forward. So anyway, can we have a mover and seconder for the recommendations on page 176? Thank you. Can I have a show of hands? All those in favour? Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you, members. Those recommendations are agreed. Move on to agenda item 11, member question time. First question is from Councillor Kemp to Councillor David Daniels. Could you ask your question, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The Office for National Statistics estimate that 713,000 men/males aged between 16 to 59 years have experienced domestic violence and sexual abuse in 2017 alone. How many direct inquiries to Torfaen County Borough Council have been received from males seeking help and support after suffering domestic violence and abuse in whatever form from their partners in 2017 and over the previous 5 years? How many direct referrals to Torfaen County Borough Council has been received from males seeking refuge or alternative accommodation after fleeing domestic violence and abuse in whatever form from their partners in 2017 and over the previous 5 years?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Kemp. In terms of direct inquiries, because the Supporting People programme is probably the principal referring agency that we commission these services from. In terms of direct inquiries, we've had, for domestic abuse, we've had in 2013-14, 8, 2014-15, 3, 2015-16, 6, 2016-17, 7, 2017-2018, 11. In terms of accepted homelessness presentations to the Council over the past 5 years, we've had 3 in 2014, 2013-14, too many numbers. 2014-15, 1, 2015-16, 3, 2016-17, 2, 2017-18, 1. I'll get all those figures to you in writing. In Torfaen over the last year, 11 men have been referred to support services where lead need was domestic abuse, 4 more in number than the previous year. I recognise that it is vital that the necessary provisions are there to support men who are victims, and I was pleased to chair the seminar just yesterday on violence against women, domestic abuse and sexual violence for the regional strategy, where members would recall domestic abuse and sexual violence towards men is explicitly included within that strategy, and it was reassuring that this subject is being addressed. So, thank you.
Councillor Kemp, do you have a supplementary?
I don't have a supplementary.
And next question again to Councillor David Daniels. Would you like to ask it?
Yes. Last week it was reported on BBC News that domestic violence and sexual abuse against men, males, is on the increase in Wales. Does Torfaen County Borough Council recognise that male domestic violence and abuse is on the increase, or are we yet again suffering from another bout of ostrich syndrome?
I'm a little disappointed with the cynical tone of this particular question, because I've had numerous conversations with you on different other subjects, and there have been very good terms in terms of, and there have been very good outcomes from some of them because we've met and chatted about them. It's not something that you've raised with me previously, I would say, and in every correspondence on the issue I have treated it with the utmost respect and diligence, as I try to do with every member's query that comes to me, irrespective of party, because I think it's important to do that. On every occasion, I've also offered a meeting with yourself to listen to your views and, on the subject and discuss any thoughts or ideas you might have, but to date you've not taken me up on these, so hopefully you might do after this answer. I find sitting down with members helps me understand the issue better and often progresses the issue in a constructive way. Had you taken up the offer of dialogue, I might have been in a better position to answer the substantive point of the question. In my previous answer, I've given statistics relating directly to Torfaen, where Council provides or commissions the service. Unfortunately, I've not been able to find official statistics behind your general statement of an increase across Wales, so it's difficult for me to answer, but my officers are looking into the Wales picture. I will, however, say that regardless of statistics, I do take the issue of domestic violence against men very seriously, and I will be sitting down with my officers to discuss this current provision for men victims of domestic abuse, and I'm very open to conversations with any members, including Councillor Kemp, who have any view or ideas on this subject. So,
thank you. Councillor Kemp, do you have a supplementary?
I do, Mayor, and it's been partly, well, I think it's been answered, but I think this is the opportunity to confirm belief, if you like, is, and it is, should Torvine male victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse be given equal help and support as that of Torvine female victims?
Well, yeah, the answer is yes. So, and coming out of the strategy seminar yesterday and in discussions with officers, that is my belief. But, however, I have said that I would like to sit down, in terms of having a solid, concrete answer to you, I would much prefer to sit down with officers, including yourself and any other interested members, and actually explore the process that a male victim of domestic violence goes through, just to see at each stage what that provision looks like. So, I feel that, yes, we do offer an equal service. However, I would like to explore that fully and give you a concrete answer at a later date. Okay.
Thank you. Question 3 again to Councillor David Daniels. Could you ask a question, Councillor Kemp?
Thank you, Mayor. With the known increase in men-male domestic violence and abuse, a Welsh local authority is considering opening up a male-only refuge. Should Torvine County Borough Council be doing the same or offering an alternative safe accommodation of some description? If yes, what? If no, why not?
Okay, so, yeah, thanks for the question. I think you're referring to some BBC coverage relating to Bridgend, is that correct? Well, my officers have undertaken direct inquiries with the authority, and I can advise you that Bridgend, Cardiff and the Vale of Glamorgan councils are jointly engaged in exploring the need for a regional approach to supporting men who are victims of domestic abuse and sexual violence. These joint discussions are at very early stages. A scoping exercise is taking place later this month, to which went through the VAUDA board, that's the Violence Against Women and Domestic Abuse, the acronym, has been invited to offer their input. There has, however, been no considerations to put men-only refuge in Bridgend at this point in time. With regional activity already been undertaken in Bridgend, and with the publication of the Regional Violence Against Women and Domestic Abuse Sexual Violence Strategy, as exec member, I will ensure that the strategic regional linkages and address this issue of refuge and safe accommodation within the strategy. I would also advise members that should anyone require safe accommodation for these issues, the Council will support the provision of accommodation, and we have teams of staff who will advise based within social care and housing. To conclude, I will reiterate my offer to sit down and discuss this in greater detail with any members who have a view on it.
Okay, Councillor Kemp, do you have a supplementary? No, thank you. Okay, then question 4 is to Councillor Fiona Cross from Councillor Jason O'Connell. Could you ask your question, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A constituent on my ward has recently been issued with a fine which is not being contested, as she accepts that despite not seeing signage, she breached the rules regarding dogs on a sports pitch at Cumbrans Boating Lake. The lady in question is on a minimum PIP, a very low income, and requires support to pay her bills. All she has asked is that she is afforded the ability to pay the £100 fine in instalments, which has been turned down as it considered a relatively low amount. Can I ask that the executive member looks at this case specifically and further cases for low-income earners and puts in place a system that allows them to pay in instalments so that they do not have to make the choice between food, power, or to avoid court action?
Yeah, thank you for raising this question. You're not alone. Other members have raised it, including my colleague Councillor Melson, who's also highlighted this, ever the protector of the most vulnerable. And I do appreciate you highlighting it. In this instance, this query has come from a resident who's admitted fault and accepts responsibility and knows that the fine needs to be paid, which is to be admired. The process to date has been that the fine has to be paid in one instalment and is being administered by our contractor in the enforcement pilot. The sundry debtors team have advised that a payment plan could be set up. Close working with the Public Protection Service and business support would be required, and in setting up and monitoring the payments to enable prosecution where necessary within the statutory period of 6 months from the date the offence is committed. Needless to say, this isn't something we currently do. From experience elsewhere, we've learned that when payment instalments are offered, only 10% of payments are completely paid off, which goes against the principle of imposing a fine in the first place. To complicate matters further, if we proceed to court for the original offence, because they haven't paid the fine in full, then part payment needs to be refunded, and then this becomes a very messy legal and financial process. In addition, where only part payment is made, we would also have the option to write off the remaining amount, if we wanted to, but this would put us into a bad debt position. More importantly, it would be unfair on those that pay the full amount and allows those who've committed offences to pay a reduced rate. I'm not saying that this would happen in this particular case, in this instance, but I have to look at this policy holistically and accept that the risk could happen. As I said, I completely understand that this one-off case, this case is not a one-off. I'm sure it's not unique. However, I also want to protect the environment and ensure that we have a cleaner and greener Torfaen. And I stress, just one part of our strategy is enforcement. It is the stick, but the process has to be efficient and fair, and I want to ensure residents of Torfaen know we mean business on this, whilst also being seen to listen to those in most genuine need. The current informal advice, which is what your residents should have been informed of, is that if they are struggling with a fixed penalty notice, that they can put money aside over a period of up to 4 months and then pay it off in one go, given that this will usually take 5 to 6 months to bring the matter to court if needed. This is considered reasonable and fair, and I would propose this becomes more than just informal advice, but becomes the way of supporting residents who've accepted responsibility and who genuinely will pay without creating new bureaucracy. As members will be aware, I've charged officers with looking at an in-house pilot for enforcement, which will include the administering of fines. So we will ensure this is taken into further consideration in the scheme's design. Again, I thank Councillor O'Connell for bringing this important issue to the Council and to my attention once more.
Okay, Councillor O'Connell, do you have a supplementary question?
No, Madam Mayor, just to thank the Executive Member for the response. Appreciate it.
Thank you, members. It's the end of member question time. Move on to agenda item 12, the webcast. There we go. So agenda item 12, date of next meeting. For your information, members, the next meeting, which is the annual council meeting, is scheduled for Tuesday the 15th of May at 11 a.m. in the council chamber. This is the end of the council meeting. Thank you everybody for your attendance and contributions. Can I please remind you to sign the attendance register on the personal interests form if you haven't done so, and to return your cards to the wall. Thank you very much.